So hello everybody, my name is Melanie from the Brandenburg Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. At first, briefly to the content, we have divided our presentation into 3 parts. So in the first part, I want to tell you something about the context between the policy instruments and the good practices. In the second part, Philip wants to tell you something about the content and the goals of the regional energy concept of Oder-Land-Spree. And Ben concludes with our second good practice, the energy efficiency program Green Plus. So at first, a short overview of Brandenburg. Brandenburg is one of 16 states of Germany and is located in the northeast of Germany. Brandenburg surrounds the German capital Berlin, and together they form the European metropolitan region Berlin-Brandenburg. As you can see, Brandenburg is divided into 5 regions, and every one of these 5 regions has its own regional planning association. The energy strategy, our political instrument, focuses on the entire state of Brandenburg. So here you can see the target square of the energy strategy. The target square refers to the identified challenges for Brandenburg's energy policy. These are the environmental and climate compatibility, the economic efficiency, acceptance and participation, and at least security of supply. These challenges are supported by 6 strategic goals. You can see here 3 of them, because we thought that these are the important ones for SmartEdge. One goal is to increase the energy efficiency and reduce consumption of final energy by 23% compared to 2007. And the primary energy by 20%, also compared to 2007. Another goal is to increase the share of renewable energies in primary energy consumption by 32%. And another goal is to reduce the energy-related CO2 emissions by 72% compared to 1990. In order to implement these goals, a catalogue of measures was developed together with experts. And the implementation of the measures takes place at the state level. So at least with the help of the annually updated monitoring report, the achievement of the objectives of the energy strategy is monitored. So now to the good practices. In implementing the energy strategy, 2 good practices have proven their worth for us. The first good practice is to implement the goals of the energy strategy individually for each of the 5 regions. So each region has its own energy concept that takes into account the strengths and weaknesses of the region. Then for each region we have a regional energy manager. So Philip is one of them. And the energy manager advises and supports the actors. Then the second good practice is the Green Plus guideline, which financially supports the actors in the implementation of measures and thus creates incentives. Thank you.
So thank you, Melanie, for the introduction to Brandenburg's energy strategy. I will now continue and speak for Oder-Land-Spree. As Melanie already introduced, Oder-Land-Spree lies in the east of Brandenburg, and we have one energy concept which was designed between 2011 and 2013. The first draft of the energy concept was a very detailed analysis of the current energy system. Here it's worthwhile to mention that it was focused only on renewable energies and no coal plant or nuclear power plant is within the region located. So the first scenario was to focus on the integration of renewables only and to extend it to a maximum amount. It concluded that 20 terawatt hours per year could be produced by renewables only. The second framework followed the energy strategy model introduced by Melanie before, and it concluded that wind power should be the main renewable technology to cover the energy demand of the 400,000 inhabitants. The third one was the expert scenario. It was a more conservative scenario because it took into account legal conditions and situations, for example, regarding nature conservation. There were broad actors which defined the concept as well, so they were very interdisciplinary. They developed a guiding principle. It's called energy from the region for the region. So the energy production should be only cover the demand which is necessary within Oderland Spree, and energy export is not a major goal of the energy concept. The most important part is that different measures will be defined within the action plan. As we have heard before, there are also direct emission reduction measures, for example, energy efficiency in buildings, or indirect emission measures which decline CO2 emissions like public relation measures. In Brandenburg, we have 5 responsible project managers who try to implement the energy concept. Currently, we are in the second funding period, and I would like to present some key measures out of our action plans. For example, the regional energy management work together and are doing some feasibility analysis on where we can implement electric mobility infrastructure in public areas of municipalities. The second one is, you can see on the left-hand side a map which is colored with different colors like green or red one. It shows that we have municipalities with energy concepts or climate action plans. So we try to support these municipalities to implement measures dealing with climate adaptation or mitigation. One of the biggest parts we are responsible for is public relations, because energy in transition is just possible when we achieve a big acceptance in the inhabitants. So we created one network in 2015, and the members are meeting 3 times a year and discussing different topics. The second one are thematic conferences on energy topics. For example, one was about how we can compensate the negative effects of wind turbines on the landscapes and how the energy transition is creating economic value within regions. Once a year we are doing some energy guided tours to renewable projects in the regions where we show participants different best practice projects. And of course we are advisors of public funds and always interested in new cooperations. I'm also working in a regional planning association. That means that at my association, there are regional planners. I try to transfer the knowledge of the regional energy management into the formal planning procedures. So when the planners are doing a new plan for integrated regional development, focusing on renewable energy production, I will provide and support them. At least promoting acceptance is a very big issue nowadays, because we have already 400 wind turbines in our regions, and sadly the acceptance is a bit declining in the last days. To monitor our goals, we try to surveil which technologies have been installed recently, for example, PV systems or wind turbines. And of course, we are also looking on the development of the grid infrastructure, where new transformers have been implemented as well. And so we are doing also a regional report about the energy strategy in the regional context. At least we have some media platform, which is one is for Brandenburg itself, where all the regional energy managers present some stuff, and one regional webpage. At least we have some good practice, but I have seen it in Norway already that e-mobility plays a major role already on the streets. We are not so far, so we try to get these topics into the public agenda as well. And another good example is street illumination, because we have very old street lights in Germany still, and if you can replace it and combine it with solar energy facilities, you can save up to 70% of energy, and you have a payback period about 3 years. Overall, we had an investment since 2014 about 6.9 million euros in renewable projects. So now Benjamin will continue.
Somehow got disconnected, I think. Okay, I will continue with the third part of this presentation. The third part of this presentation is about the funding program REN+. REN+ provides investment grants for projects that aim to reduce the energy-related CO2 emissions. And given this overarching goal, reducing CO2 emissions, REN+ has several funding priorities. For example, the funding priorities include projects related to energy efficiency, renewable energy for self-consumption, or district heating. On the left, we showed some numbers about the funding of the program. The key message there is that the EU funding is highly important for REN+ and offer enough financial resources. There's a short list, we include a short list with some examples of successful applicants of the REN+ program. This short list already shows that the type of applicants is pretty diverse. For example, it includes small family-owned businesses like bakeries. It also includes big industrial corporation, for example, in the automotive sector, and also public-owned utilities. Also, the type of projects these applicants do is pretty diverse. It, for example, also includes projects related to their main production processes, as well as all these cross-sectional technologies like cooling or heating. And personally, I think the diversity of the project and the applicants is also one of the success stories of REN+. At the last slide of this presentation, I wanted to give you also a brief overview of like the benefits and the limitations of funding programs like REN+. Like, I think the main benefit of these funding programs is that we make like green projects economically viable. In REN+, the funding is highly attractive, also compared to the funds that are available on the federal level. We can top up these funds, and we can also go into areas where there are not yet federal funds available. When we design and implement projects or programs like REN+, we have also to consider like its limitations. I think the first limitation is a very basic one. It's that EU and state funds are simply limited. And even if there were like unlimited or enough funding for all that kind of projects, we face like the situation that the local municipalities or local businesses, they face a lot of more challenges in their daily businesses than reducing CO2 emissions. And we also face, like in this context, the situation that they often lack of, for example, personal resources or financial resources to really dedicate their time to implement green projects. That was already the last slide. If you have further questions about REN Plus or the other activities we're doing in Brandenburg, feel free to ask now or in the pause. So, thank you.